Hey everyone, this is Eddie Kalegi with Tim Moore reminding you that SportsSpeak is now powered by SeatGeek. SeatGeek is the one-stop shop for tickets to sporting events, concerts, and so much more.
Use the promo code SportsSpeak at checkout for $20 off your first purchase.
SeatGeek, let there be live. Now, on to the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of SportsSpeak Live, episode 161, powered by SeatGeek. Promo code SportsSpeak, all caps, one word, $20 off your first purchase. I'm Eddie Kalegi.
And I'm Tim Moore.
Well, it's the new year, January, and that means there's a lot happening in the world of football. College football just wrapped up with the national championship a couple of days ago, and the NFL postseason gets started a couple of days from now. Perfect time to have Matt Sims join us again. He played quarterback at the University of Tennessee and in the NFL. Matt, thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, appreciate it, fellas. Thank you so much for having me.
So let's start with college. I know you've been working a lot in that the last few months. National championship between Michigan of the Big Ten and Washington, who will be in the Big Ten next year. Michael Penix Jr. going head-to-head with J.J. McCarthy in that Michigan rushing offense. But it really felt like the story in that game, Matt, was Michigan's defense, which took Michael Penix essentially out of the game, it felt like at times, after he was dominant all season long. And the Wolverines put that game together and pulled away at the very end to claim that national championship.
Yeah, it really was just a great example, again, of just, defense wins championships. And that really was the case in this one, too. I think you can't forget about the fact, too, that Mike McDaniel, the defensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens, was the defensive coordinator for the Michigan Wolverines in 2021. His influence on that football team, ultimately Jesse Minter, who took over as the head defensive coordinator following that. I said it when we were doing our cast actually this last weekend that the Michigan Wolverines are just a microcosm of the Baltimore Ravens in a lot of ways. Not a ton of superstars, but a lot of great football players that could do a lot of different things and ultimately play great with each other. And that's what we saw. Just a big, strong, powerful football team. We always discuss how the college game influences the NFL. Well, in this case, we saw when you build your college team like an NFL team, right, they could be very dominant. So this is a great example of the NFL influencing the college level.
Right, Matt. And I know you had mentioned on your last episode, This Incomplete, that overall you viewed Michigan, its defense in particular, being the closest comparison of what a full NFL experience would look like from a team's perspective. But
Right.
Also from my analysis, just as a fan standpoint, Jim Harbaugh obviously has a big impact on that, but having the NFL experience beforehand. When you look at all these college coaches down the road, and obviously not every college coach is going to have NFL experience, do you feel that really also benefits Michigan? Because Jim kind of has that perspective, playing in coaching in Super Bowls and having these big game experiences that can set him up. Because I know the narrative is once he came back to college football, it was exactly he couldn't win the big game. But now he's finally finished that story. And to me, that really tells the advantages that he's had that really is set up for that story of him finally getting Michigan a national championship.
Yeah, I mean, it's one point that I was making, you're absolutely right, is that just, is failure good experience? And it's only good experience when you actually know what it is and where you came up short and how you can actually improve and make it better, right? And all of us have been through that. Everyone that's ever listened to this podcast, all three of us here, right? We've all failed at something, right? And, the true test is whether or not we actually understand why it is that we came up short and how we can improve, those things and making sure that they don't repeat themselves. And that's where we see with Harbaugh, he was able to do those things. You're right. He's a very unique coach in the sense that he does have a brother who is one of the greatest the NFL has seen in the past decade and a half now, and for him to be able to bounce off ideas, for them to be able to share personnel with each other at times, for them to share schematic ideas and how to attack teams in different ways in their experience, is truly unique and unmatched in a lot of ways. And Harbaugh, this was a big one for him. I mean, before this weekend, he was really the Andy Reid, of football in a lot of ways, a guy that was extremely successful, but never really won the big one. And finally, he's able to cap it with, a victory with, obviously a lot of criticism and skepticism to the morality of their victory in a lot of ways. And there's no doubt we can't deny those things too. But this team I thought was so good that it doesn't matter if they stilled signs or not. They really were going to be a tough team to beat no matter what. So for him, he's going to be moving on to the NFL most likely, avoiding all of the basically repercussions of whatever took place under his watchful eye there. And we'll see what happens to Michigan after that.
And if
And
I could
that,
ask one
yeah, go
also,
ahead.
following up with that as well, what do you think it leads for Jim down the road? Do we think he's going to come back to the NFL? Is this it with him in Michigan? Or do you think he's going to be staying put and trying to go for back-to-back national titles next year?
No, well, he's not going to be able to go for back-to-back national titles because I feel like after the NCAA gets done with all their investigations and everything like that, that they'll probably be suspended from playoffs or something like that. The fact that they suspended him for 3 games at the end of the football year and that they were getting ready to take him to court, and then ultimately Michigan backs down from that, I think kind of just shows that there's maybe some more evidence to where, like, yeah, if they would have taken them to court, they might have been embarrassed with the result of what they would have found out. So I think them accepting the second stint of being out there kind of also, identify themselves with being like, yeah, there were some sketchy things going on, under my watchful eye, and I should tread carefully here and just accept it and move forward after that. And it's a credit to him though too, in the same regard. Not that they're completely innocent, right? Because there obviously was some wrongdoing, for an assistant coach to try to erase information from people that were investigating them, right? Only a guilty person would do that. But, it does also show you that this dude really built an unbelievable culture and organization to overcome all of those things and still perform at a high level, and ultimately, for them to look the way they do as far as being an imposing force on the football field too. So it just kind of shows you the multitude of just how much work was put into that program over these past few years.
Absolutely. And, for this to be the year that he's trying to make the NFL transition, I think a few really golden opportunities for him out there. The Chargers, a team that it seems like have been a coach away the last few years. And then now today, Pete Carroll out as Seahawks coach. And what would be
Right.
the irony there if the old USC coach is out and his former rival over at Stanford replaces him? So definitely a couple
And
of opportunities. Yeah, go ahead.
And how about this irony? How did Pete Carroll get his job at the Seattle Seahawks? Well, he got in trouble at USC and he had to leave because he wasn't going to face the repercussions of that situation and all the things that were taking place at USC. So how funny would that be if Harbaugh goes to Seattle doing the exact same thing that Pete Carroll did, is just avoiding disciplinary actions at the college level?
Crazy to think that that is a very realistic possibility. Now, before we get to the NFL postseason, one debate a lot of fans have had this year is for MVP, because there really hasn't been a clear favorite, and there's been several candidates that have risen to the top of a lot of people's rankings, and they'll have a bad week and people forget about them. And I posted my rankings on Twitter a couple weeks ago, and Sims, you actually disagreed with me. You said I had Tyreek Hill a bit too low, and I was surprised to see the quarterback here defending someone who's not a quarterback in the award, where it seems like it always goes to the best quarterback. So right now, with the end of the regular season, we saw Lamar Jackson lead the Ravens to that big victory over San Francisco, Christian McCaffrey with a big year, and of course Tyreek Hill putting up the numbers. Who's your MVP favorite?
Yeah, I mean, I am going to go to Lamar Jackson and back to the quarterback position now after the culmination of the entire season. But I think really what I was trying to stress too with that Twitter reaction, right, of your post was, I just feel like we kind of hand it to quarterbacks too much. Now I understand it's the quote unquote most important position on the football field for any team and their success. But I just feel like at this day and age, we're doing a disservice to the integrity of the game too by always handing to the quarterback, by crowning them. I also think too that just we don't give enough respect to other positions of the greatness that they do. I mean, I think to the years back when Derrick Henry was rushing for 2,000 yards in consecutive seasons, and he wasn't even nominated for an MVP award. I mean, to me, like, that's just crazy. You won't even see another 2,000-yard rusher like Derrick Henry ever again. And we just, we gave it to Tom Brady, we gave it to Aaron Rodgers, we gave it to whoever, and it's like, I understand that those players are great, but there's no reason why we can't celebrate greatness outside of the quarterback position. I think that's also just the stigma of how we view the game of football too. It's very hard for even people on ESPN or whatever it is to evaluate the game as a whole because it's just too difficult. Whereas the quarterback position is like really simple. Did he throw it to the same team? Was it for a lot of yards and how many touchdowns? So it's really easier to say, oh, he stinks or he's good, without really understanding the bigger picture. Tyreek Hill to me has been absolutely phenomenal this year. Christian McCaffrey has been absolutely phenomenal this year from a receiver standpoint, from a runner, and from a receiver too, for Christian's case. So I just think that we got to, at times rethink this whole MVP race. I mean, would it kill us to put someone on the defensive side of the football in the MVP category? I mean, to me, like defensive player of the year, Max Crosby. Now, I know he might not be leading in sacks and all that stuff, but just like the impact that he has made for that football team and a consistent basis against the run, against the pass, these are just things that I would like us to consider more when we're talking about the MVP race instead of the best quarterback. Because if it is that way, let's just call it the best quarterback of the year award instead of the MVP.
Right. And also looking at other awards down the road, obviously rookie of the year on the offensive side to me. I mean, CJ Stroud has been remarkable this year. Obviously, you have guys like Laporta and so on, but is it also a safe argument to say, because this is what I felt looking at CJ Stroud's rookie season, if you compare his numbers, and I know, Eddie, you argued about Jalen Hurts when we mentioned this in the past about being in the MVP discussion, I'd argue CJ Stroud really has a legitimate chance, had he been healthy, not to win MVP, but at least be in that top 5 discussion at the end of the year with what he's meant for the Texans this year, as well as just really how well he's played overall.
Yeah, it's a great point, and this is, and here I am, being hypocritical of even just what I'm saying too about the quarterback position right now, because you don't see performances like this from quarterbacks very often. With this touchdown to interception ratio, you don't see it from rookie quarterbacks. In the history of the game, the way that he has come onto the scene, and he should be in the consideration, honestly, for the MVP, because that is what we're talking. We're talking about the most valuable player, right, for a team. And if he's not on that football team, they are definitely a sub 500 football team for sure. So it's just a credit to DeMeco Ryans, who to me is coach of the year in a lot of ways, for him to change the just overall destiny and the perception of that football team in such a short period of time, along with their star quarterback, is truly remarkable. And, I'm excited for them too, because they have already forgotten about Deshaun Watson and all of that drama that took place towards the end of his reign. And there are definitely some brighter days ahead for CJ Stroud and for DeMeco Ryans.
Absolutely. And they kick off wild card weekend, and that's a good transition here into the 6 games for the NFL. We'll give our thoughts on. And how about a difference in styles? You got CJ Stroud, the rookie, going up against Joe Flacco, who was on his couch a couple months ago, hoping to get an opportunity. He gets it with the Cleveland Browns, and he's looked back to his early 20-teens form and has been electric for that team. So we'll have Flacco against Stroud battling it out. 2 teams that are great stories. The Texans, too, I want to add how quickly their rebuild really happened, with as seemingly disastrous as the end of the Bill O'Brien tenure was 3 years ago with Deshaun Watson, to rise to this level as quickly as they have. And all the credit goes to DeMeco Ryans and CJ Stroud, along with that defense, which has really developed as well. But yeah, Matt, Browns, Texans, 2 interesting teams that I think whichever one wins has a real chance to potentially make a surprising Cinderella deep run. Who do you think has the edge on Saturday?
Yeah, I would have to say that my edge definitely goes to the Cleveland Browns. One, just because I feel like Kevin Stefanski, Jim Schwartz, them being able to have more experience in the playoffs, to be able to, I think, have a little bit more of an experience too with just the team that they have is different. The Texans, no doubt, it's been a great run, but to say that they're a gritty playoff battle team that's ready to go, I'm not quite so sure yet. I know that they'll have their hands full with the Cleveland Browns defense. Jim Schwartz is extremely creative, loves to get after the quarterback in creative ways. I think that could be a potential weakness for the Houston Texans. If the Houston Texans can run the ball consistently, that will definitely help them tremendously in this game too, and not being so one-dimensional and leaning on their rookie quarterback. The other question too will really be, can the Houston Texans create some turnovers for Joe Flacco and this Cleveland Browns offense? Can they force them to be a pass-happy team in a lot of situations too? But Joe Flacco, his ability to throw the football down the field has been absolutely tremendous. I've told people a few times too, like I definitely thought that he was washed up the last few years that he was playing, and it just wasn't the case. He just was playing for the Jets, and that's why, you know, we really didn't actually know how good he was. But that typically happens when you play for the Jets sometimes when you're a really good football player. No, I'm just kidding. But in some ways, I'm not. So it's a fun game. I really look forward to this one a lot. Got to give a slight edge to the Cleveland Browns. And this one, if I was picking here with you guys, I would say the Browns. But with my father's podcast and I that we do, Sims Complete, I picked the Texans. So, yeah, we'll see how that plays out for me. I'm going to go 1-1 for sure.
And I want to stay on the AFC side real quick because there's going to be some very interesting conditions coming up in this Miami-Kansas City game.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen the weather. The temperature is projected to be -4 come game time, and there's going to be snow as well. Miami, of course, a warm weather team. Kansas City somewhat adapted, but we've seen the struggles for the Kansas City offense this year with the drops. And obviously Miami's explosive offense, but you add snow into the mix. What are you going to expect for this game? Because this is going to be, I think, probably the most chaotic game in the entirety of the playoffs because you don't know what to expect. And we also don't know what the winds are going to look like come game day as well.
Yeah, the big question mark really would be, can Tua be super effective passing the football in these type of conditions? We really haven't seen it before in his career. So I think that'll be a big tell, right, for them. One point that my brother continues to make about the Miami Dolphins, too, is just their inability to throw outside the numbers. They constantly are throwing in breakers over the middle. And that'll be something that I think Steve Spagnuolo and this Kansas City Chiefs are extremely talented, extremely tough, and especially on home field advantage. That will be something that they try to corral as much as they possibly can. Steve Spagnuolo, just like Jim Schwartz, he is going to be overly aggressive at times, probably unnecessarily too. So, there is a potential too for big plays off of that. Sometimes when defensive coordinators are too aggressive, they do leave the back end guys one-on-one situations too often. And we've seen countless times, if you do that with guys like Waddle, you do that guys like with Tyreek Hill too often, that could be, a bad news bears for your team. But I've never seen a Dolphin in snow, and I'm looking forward to it this weekend and seeing if that happens. This was another one where I think the Chiefs will win this football game, but on our podcast, I did pick the Dolphins. I'm also beating my father that badly in picks that I just kind of had to give him some sort of an advantage to get back into the race a little bit. But I think the Chiefs definitely have a big advantage here, but I would definitely be very excited if the Dolphins picked up a huge upset with this one.
Now, I think if TJ Watt did not get hurt, there would be serious potential for an upset in the third and final AFC game because of how the Steelers have played the Bills the last couple of years, and the weather conditions don't look great in that game either. And Josh Allen has the tendency to turn over the ball a lot, and the Steelers have a good defense. Pittsburgh might be the weakest team in the postseason, and I remember when they were in a 2-7 matchup with Kansas City recently, and that didn't go all that smoothly. But if you're the Steelers with Mason Rudolph, and if you can run the ball with Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren, I think you can at least keep that game competitive. I'm not saying it's going to be an upset necessarily, but we can't forget either. The Bills were a team that had like a less than 5% chance to make the playoffs 13 weeks into the season, then went on a run, but they haven't been able to prove yet that they can win the big game in the postseason over the last couple of years. And Mike Tomlin has proven to do that before. So at this point, I got to go with the Bills, Matt, but I think Pittsburgh has the potential to make this game more interesting than some people might think.
Yeah, they definitely do. I mean, listen, they're a 10-7 football team. So as much as we've been critical of this football team and, complaining about them and all that kind of stuff too, they sure do know how to make games ugly. They sure do know how to make, games consistently just difficult for opposing offenses. And they also just know how to win some of these ugly football games late when it matters most. And anytime that you can be within one score at the end of the football game, that usually gives your team a tremendous advantage, even if you have been outplayed for the first 3 quarters. The Steelers have really found a great identity of doing that. Being on the road, though, with Mason Rudolph in Buffalo, absolutely just unbelievable atmosphere to play in. Bills Mafia. I mean, you saw the one dude, he jumped off the table and got, lit on fire. So it just kind of shows you how nuts those dudes are.
Yeah.
So it's going to be exciting. But Josh Allen's one of the top 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL, one of the top 5 NFL football players in the NFL. And I don't give a damn if he throws 4 interceptions, because I feel like he can make the 5 or 6 plays that you need to ultimately win the game. And that's really what they need. The Bills are not a team that's about winning pretty. It's about just being adaptable and winning in multiple ways. They've shown that. They've shown when they need to run the football to win, they do it. When they need to just be pass happy and aggressive, they could do that too as well with Josh Allen. So, I definitely give an edge to the Bills. And I think the defensive line for the Buffalo Bills and really just Sean McDermott being at home with that defense, I think I give them that slight edge in protecting home turf.
And now looking into the NFC side, the Dallas Cowboys continue the NFC East streak of multiple division winners every year. What is it now? 18, 19, 20? I was telling you,
I think we're at 19 years now.
19 years. It's absolutely insane. But what do you feel about this Dallas Cowboys team? Obviously, Jordan Love had a cold start to the year, picked it up, and it seems like he's more been a streaky quarterback as this season's progressed. Do we Dallas is going to single-handedly control the passing defense or the passing offense of the Green Bay Packers and control this game?
Yeah, I mean, this really is an interesting one too. I mean, I just think that the Dallas Cowboys, this would be a huge upset if they were to lose to Green Bay in this situation. Jordan Love and them have absolutely done a great job. I'm extremely impressed with him and just his growth at the position. It definitely has had its ups and downs for sure, but you could see why Green Bay made the move of letting, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time walk away from their team because they had faith in him. I also think that Matt LaFleur has done a great job of just kind of identifying what he does well again, away from Aaron Rodgers and being, essentially told by him what to do. So that's where it's another cool thing for the Green Bay Packers too, is just kind of, finding themselves again, as play callers, as leaders, right? And as individuals too, and also just Jordan Love having that experience. So I think they're a team that is to be reckoned with in years to come. But I just think the Dallas Cowboys, Dan Quinn, home field again, so difficult. Dak Prescott playing the way that he's been playing, Mike McCarthy being able to dial it up against, to me, probably one of the weaker defenses in the NFL playoffs would be the Green Bay Packers. CeeDee Lamb just going, crazy the past few weeks and really this whole season, but this last few weeks have been absolutely crazy. I have a hard time picking against the Dallas Cowboys in this one. I think they get the edge, and they make it difficult for the rookie QB who has done a great job filling in for one of the GOATs.
Matt, before you go, 2 final games in the NFC. You got the Lions and the Rams, might be the best ticket out there. Seems like it's the most expensive game to get to. Finally, a playoff game at Ford Field. And with all these cold weather games we've talked about, that's going to be good conditions. And I'm expecting a lot of offense there. And Matt Stafford's return to Detroit. And then you got the Eagles who, as an Eagles fan, I've been disappointed. They have been a mess these last few weeks. Playing against Tampa, Baker Mayfield. Baker has won in the playoffs before. So a quick thought from you on both of those games.
Oh man. So the greatest thing I think about this is that here we have Matt Stafford, one of the better quarterbacks that we've seen really in the past decade, and what he's done here in the NFL has just been absolutely ridiculous. When he did bring the Detroit Lions to the playoffs, it wasn't because they were a good football team, it's because he was that kind of dude. And I just think that it is very serendipitous that his first playoff win in Detroit will be when he's the opposing team's quarterback. And that's where I'm going with that one, because I just think that him, Kyron Williams, Sean McVay, they're going to be extremely difficult to stop. I don't think that the Detroit Lions have enough on their defensive line or front seven to really get after him consistently enough in this football game. I think that Matt Stafford and them will be able to move the football on ease against this Detroit Lions team. And I agree, it probably will be somewhat closer to a shootout. That being said, since we both think that way, it'll probably be like a 17-10 game. But I am looking forward to that. I do think that the Rams, they'll pull away in that one in a good game. And then the other game with Tampa Bay and Philly, I just, being a Giants and Jets fan here in the New York area, I will never bet on Philly for anything, even when they are a good team. And right now, they're not a good football team. And after seeing what the Giants did to him a week ago, I got to be thinking that Todd Bowles is going to doing something very similar against the Philadelphia Eagles and just pressuring them, being super aggressive. Baker's definitely battling some injuries, but I still think that he, has enough onions to throw it aggressively down the football field, play tough, make a few big plays because I think the Eagles defense too has really struggled too to play consistently. And especially they're just not getting after the quarterback the way that we're used to seeing them, which is so strange. So going to go with the home team again there with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield getting a victory over Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni.
Yeah, the awkward defensive coordinator change. It's been a really tumultuous last few weeks for the
Yeah.
Philadelphia Eagles. Good stuff right there. Tim and I will have our picks on Twitter at SportsSpeak Live. Matt Sims Complete. Thanks for joining us here on SportsSpeak Live.
All right. Thank you so much, fellas. I really appreciate it.
That's it for this episode. We'll talk to you next week after Wild Card Weekend. But until next time, I'm Eddie Kalegi.
And I'm Tim Moore.
Signing off of SportsSpeak Live. Enjoy the weekend.